Morning and welcome to the Social Show. My name is Viwe Kyolwana. For the next 30 minutes, we'll be talking a little bit about CSI, CSR, as well as shared value. Shared value actually being the main concept that we're going to discuss on the show today. But you can just relax and wait a bit for that. If you want to know a little bit more what we do, about what we do, you can go to www.social-tv.co.za. We've got crazy, amazing stories for you from the summit, from the past two summits actually, which, between Trilogue as well as Shared Value Summit, which I think is quite a great contradicting sort of conversation you can have with your colleagues today and just talk about what you learned at Trilogue that you didn't learn at Africa Shared Values, and should those two platforms actually be competing for the same space, and such. It's been a long time, so I'll just go straight into the news. On our headlines today, WhatsApp and the FC Foundation to recycle your plastic bottles. Also, Rhino Conservation Awards are now open for the nominations, and Walmart is now rolling out a new educational benefit. Some Cape Town residents now have a surplus of plastic water bottles following recent efforts to assist communities in drought-stricken areas. To address this, the Air Flight Centre Foundation has launched a recycling initiative which will see 3 cyclists recruited and providing bicycles with containers to cycle around specific Cape Town areas and collect empty water bottles for recycling. The cyclists come from Joe Slovo Park and can collect 30 bottles each, which can be increased to 50 if the bottles are flattened to remove the air from them. Once collected, the Fly Centre Foundation takes the bottles to a recycling depot in Epping, and they are be looking out into donating these bottles to the Owl Sanctuary, which makes owl and bat houses and beehives with them. In other news, founded by Dr. Larry Hansen, with the support of Zeiss and China New Enterprises, and in collaboration with the African Department of Environmental Affairs and the Game Rangers Association of Africa, the Rhino Awards acknowledge the work being done to fight against rhino poaching. The primary objective of the awards is to give recognition to the leading role players in African rhino conservation, and in doing so, raise awareness of the amazing work that they do. The Rhino Conservation Awards will be presented on Friday, the 24th of August, at a gala function at Monte Casino in Gauteng. High-level dignitaries under the patronage of His Serene Highness Prince Albert II of Monaco will attend, including African government officials, foreign diplomats, media sponsors, and other significant NGOs. And lastly, in our news, Walmart is rolling out a new education benefit that will give full and part-time workers the chance to pursue a debt-free college degree. The company has partnered with Guild Education to offer all of the US employees and eligible family members the opportunity to pursue an associate or bachelor's degree in business or supply chain management. The courses will be taught through University of Florida, Brandman University, Bellevue University, all of which can be attended online or on campus. And that concludes our news for today. About farming and what's happening at Woolworths at the moment, and she's saying that they need more young farmers, more innovations around farming actually, so that they can actually just inculcate that in their shared value model and understand, and not only just help black farmers or farmers that come from underprivileged spaces, but also get the youth involved. The great thing about shared value is that it really wants to work with a holistic idea of really, really being responsible about the communities that companies are working with. They really want to make sure that not only are they ticking all the boxes, but they're also in line with the NDP goals, number one, but more than that, the UN sustainability goals. And I think that's exactly what Feroz was talking about, that not only are they only looking at the supply chain, but they're also looking at who are the people that are actually being given the opportunities by Woolworths, and how can they maximize the kind of work that they do to make sure that they sort of tick all the boxes. So if it's not youth, it's sort of BEE. If it's not BEE, it's underprivileged areas. If it's not underprivileged areas, it's so almost sort of like inculcating all that they can to make sure that everybody gets a piece of the pie. And as we know, about 70% of households in South Africa, informal settlements skip meals or eat the same meal on most days. And, the breadwinners are also struggling. We kind of understand what's going on in South Africa. So for me, what it actually means when I think of local farmers getting into spaces like Woolworths, or young farmers getting into local spaces, I see, a decline, or in how people receive food and how people sort of understand food from a Woolworths perspective. Because at the end of the day, not everybody can afford to go to Woolworths to go buy. Not everybody can just, go and get the kind of meals that are good for you, which we all know, they're organic, they're straight from, the land, they're very good. It's just a matter of access now, and not only access to markets, but access to the people who actually need the food. And we have a huge food insecurity problem in South Africa. And I wonder how they then sort of align their, profit to purpose model, which is to get young people within the market, but also to significantly give back the food. And then I think that's where CSI and shared value sort of play in the same space. Shared value is really about the business. It's really about making sure that people are included. It's to make sure that in that inclusion, the business doesn't fall. But at the same time, CSI says, I'm going to give, and I'm going to give because that's just what we do. That's what good business does. And obviously it's in the law. So I think a lot of businesses are running away from the CSI space, particularly because it doesn't sort of solidify a gain, and it also does give them that good value for people. Obviously, a lot of corporates just do CSI for the PR, but what I think shared value is doing is taking away a lot of the good work that really doesn't need to be justified using profit. So quite an interesting thing. I think they could actually just move a little bit more into the CSI space, a little bit more intricately into the CSI space. I know they've got different things that they do, but I think as a brand, as a clothing, food, all of these things that they use, they could potentially use those same resources to fund or work with their CSI space. I don't think they should be far apart. I think shared value works hand in hand with CSI. But we'll see. We'll see how they plan that out. I definitely will be following up with Farouz, because we did speak a little bit about how they plan to be sustainable in making sure that, first of all, young people are interested in farming, which they aren't. But more than that, making sure that those people are open and are I think just made vulnerable to their markets, made open to their markets, making their markets a little bit more accessible. I think it's very important. But anyway, you tell me your ideas. What do you think? Do you think shared value is taking over CSI, or do you think they should be working hand in hand, or do you think companies kind of need both? Just let me know. After this, we'll be back with things to remember, just to wrap up the show.
I think we've got a really strong commercial agricultural capacity in South Africa, and we've got really good farmers producing a lot of our food needs. In some commodities we actually export in good years, some of the staple crops and so on. However, there's a lot of challenges in our environment, and I think one of our biggest issues is that the conditions for agriculture, the natural conditions, are not the best. So I think the statistics say that only about 12% of our land has the appropriate temperature and soil conditions to support rain-fed agriculture. 67% of our land is better suited for grazing.
Does a child deserve to have in his or her tiny hands? Probably a candy or a toy, or even better, a book and a pen. But what if this pen gets replaced by a gun? Imagine the horror of violence and abuse children are facing every day, and the kind of future we are building for them. In fact, 300,000 children are still working as militants in conflicting areas all around the world. They did not have a choice, but you do.
Humankind faces many challenges to ensure that all people have the same development and well-being opportunities. In the year 2000, the United Nations adopted 8 objectives to meet the main needs of the poorest. 15 years later, 193 countries adopted the 2030 Agenda that sets out the Sustainable Development Goals, a new horizon with the most pressing challenges for human beings in the coming years. These are 17 ambitious goals that require the collaboration of civil society and the public and private sectors whose success means a more egalitarian and livable world. The eradication of poverty and hunger so as to ensure a healthy life. Achieve universal access to basic services such as water, sanitation and sustainable energy. Support the generation of development opportunities through inclusive education and decent work. Foster innovation and resilient infrastructures by creating communities and cities capable of producing and consuming in a sustainable way. Reduce inequalities in the world, especially gender inequalities. Caring for the environment by combating climate change and protecting oceans and terrestrial ecosystems. Promote collaboration between different social actors to create an environment of peace and sustainable development. If we achieve these sustainable development goals among people, governments and companies, we will make the world a more prosperous place for all.
So we're a few minutes from wrapping up the show, and if you missed a little bit of the bulk of the show, don't be afraid. We'll have the podcast ready for you straight after this. Today we're talking about shared value versus CSI. I suppose a lot of people are going to have a lot of debates around what is more important and if, you know, there should be a sort of a collaboration with the two methodologies. I'm still yet to see them in place and in practice. However, as much as I speak about corporates and I speak about how they are or aren't being socially aware, I also like to speak about African development. And that's the basis of why we do this show. It's because we want to make sure that African countries, African business, African thought leaders develop and make sure that they get to where they need to get in a way that is unique and that makes sense to where we are. And I do think a lot of the times when we go to these summits, it's very difficult to get that. It's very difficult for you to find that space where you are implementing and understanding and being funded for an African idea. And that is exactly what this section of the show is. It is things to remember. What would I like you to remember about the show besides my blabbering and my really one-sided jokes is what you're about to listen to.
Africa is rising, but not everywhere. Not for everybody, and in the light of extremely rapid population growth, not fast enough. Africa's population is likely to increase from more than 1.2 billion today to over 1.8 billion in 2035. By 2035, the continent's population will account for more than 20% of the world's population, but Africa's share of the global economy is only expected to rise from 3% to just under 4%.
Africa look like in 2035, sorry. That's what the predictions look like. However, that's a great segue straight to the Vision 2030 Summit will be happening on the 20th to 21st of June 2018 at Emperor's Palace. They'll be talking a little bit about what they think is going to be happening in Vision in 2030. So it'd be quite interesting to find out what that difference is going to be. I definitely think the clip we just played did highlight a lot of the things that we need to look at, from poverty to the situation around export and import, especially when it comes to agriculture, something that I actually did touch on the show today. But we'll find out at the summit on the 20th and the 21st of June. And that's your thing to remember for this show. It's been great. It's been a while. I haven't been back in a minute, but you'll be getting the social show every single day from 9:30 till 10 a.m. talking all things CSI, CSR and CSV. I am Vucholwana and I am done.
Yes, who got brands talking? Brandlive.co.za